Hey everybody, in today's video, I'm going to show you how I got the achievements, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Proactive Defense. And both of these were as Communist Chile in Hearts of Iron 4. Or, I meant to say Chile. Honestly, if you hear me say Chile or Chile interchangeably, don't worry about it. We are going to first start off with Enforced Constitution of 1925, and then I'm going to assign my strong divisions to a front line with Bolivia, going to upgrade infrastructure, and then build factories in the states that we've upgraded the infrastructure in. Then for research, right now I'm going to mainly focus on research speed and industry. And then I will build some destroyers and some submarines. Got ready to start. And then for our next focus, I'm gonna do policies of Alessandri. We're also going to establish the anti-fascist coalition. And then we're going to do inflation control and and criticize a liberal complacency. Then we're going to construct the Stadio. Then we're going to suppress the Nazistas, then do a motion of no confidence against our leader, and we're going to pick the first guy so that we can later turn Chile into a dictatorship. I'm going to establish Corfu right after this, and for my new commander-in-chief in the army, I just picked the Eduardo, I believe was his name, something like that, as my guy. And this is whenever I finally decide to draw an offensive, but like, the offensive is so small and most of it can be done by micromanaging, so it's not super important. But now we're going to do low-cost housing, and we're going to spread anti-fascist thought throughout the universities, and we're going to just basically crack down on fascism. But now it is time to strengthen the National Institute, and now it is time for us to increase presidential powers and make ourselves a dictator and change our ideology at the same time. Pretty useful focus. And now we're going to do the future of Chilean Socialist Republic, and we're going to keep our leader. Maybe the other ones are better, but I don't know. I had so many failed attempts at this point that I didn't care. We're going to hire the militant communists and then support for the revolution internationally, and we're going to sponsor American revolutionaries. And so we can now finally start expanding, but we're going to do development inwards. We're just going to basically make the communist parties and our neighbors stronger, and then launch a revolution. And our first target will be Bolivia. Also do enforce stricter secularism, as we'll be able to get a pretty good manpower buff. The next focus after that, and this war with Bolivia is pretty quick. We just rush for their victory points, they don't have very many, and they fall. And then I just have my puppet take over all of Bolivia, and now our next target will be Uruguay. And so, to go after Uruguay, I'm going to set up a naval invasion from the southern port, and just have it be a naval invasion of their capital and the province next to the capital. And then we'll unite our navy, and of course set it to do naval invasion support in the sea that we need supremacy in to do our naval invasion. And let's start bolstering the revolutionary forces in Uruguay. And now the fascists have been dealt with, so we actually get a decent amount of political power, allowing us to do the revolution in Uruguay. And it finally begins, and so does our naval invasion. Now, they only start with one division, but I just sent them to their capital to defend, and Uruguay didn't have any troops actually defending their own capital. So, we just gave that land to our puppet, and now our next target is Brazil. And we're going to train 17 of the regiment of Carabineros, just so we can get that like nice 24 divisions, but also we're going to start purchasing some arms in order to, actually arm our troops. Then move up to limited conscription. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're doing the Socialist Youth Organization after enforcing stricter secularism, which gives us a nice manpower bonus. Now I'm going to do Armada de Chile, and the whole point of that is so that we can eventually, well, we're just going to go down the naval focuses in order to do the focus purchase destroyers and submarines, which will allow us to purchase old subs and old destroyers. And obviously, restore the war economy when we can, because it's just good. And then repeat that whole infrastructure upgrade in the civilian factories. And now I'm going to start bolstering the revolutionary forces in Brazil, and we're going to do some focuses to get us some military factories, and we're also going to improve relations with the great powers so that we can buy destroyers, submarines, and all of that from them to build up our navy. And if you're playing along, be aware that they won't always accept your requests for purchasing the ships, so it might take a few times of you asking the same country to actually get the ships from them. And we're going to do more focuses for more military factories, and we finally have gotten our first batch of ships from England, and we're also exercising our troops on the border with Brazil. But now that they are almost done and all almost to rank 3, we're going to start launching the revolution, and I've already set up my offensive and everything. So yeah, we're just going to wait for the revolution to begin, and we'll pretty quickly take over Brazil. And now I'm going to start moving down to land reforms and the Mapuche focus in order to, solve that whole issue and get rid of those debuffs. And now we're ready to attack Brazil, and we're going to call Uruguay in because that's our only border with them outside Bolivia. But most of the land that we'd be taking there, not very useful. The reason that we're attacking from Uruguay is because of the coast, and that allows us to get like Rio de Janeiro and all of those big cities pretty quickly. And I mean, we just have more divisions than Brazil does. And so just invading along the coast instead of invading from Bolivia allows us to move a lot faster across the majority of the Brazilian district points. And we're going to move up to extensive conscription while we can, because it's just nice to have. We won't have very much manpower for quite a while. But yeah, I'm just running along the coast. And we're going to start prepping to actually invade Argentina after this. And for national focuses, I'm mainly just grabbing up bonuses. We're not going to do proposed closer cooperation and stuff like that for quite a while, just simply because there is a time and place where that is most optimal, and that is just not right now. But for the peace deal with Brazil, we're just going to have our puppet of Chilean Brazil take all the territory, and we are going to take Brazil's navy. And now with the conquest of Brazil done, we are going to move our troops down to Argentina. We're going to have our main force be attacking in the east, and then we're going to get a force or a group of puppet divisions to set up to defend our, core territories. And now it is time to launch the revolution in Argentina. And now that the revolution has begun, we're going to call in Uruguay and Brazil, and we're just gonna try and mop up Argentina's main victory points very quickly. And there's also this event where we were having a problem with the near anarchic society modifier coming back, but it just gets resolved over time, I believe. But yeah, we're taking over the victory points of Argentina pretty quickly, as just like the war with Brazil, we just simply outnumber them with divisions. They don't have enough to cover everything, so we just quickly go in. And actually kind of found out that we didn't really need those puppet divisions for defense, but rather they were more useful as troops that could do an offense against Argentina. And now, with the fall of Argentina, my first goal will be to take their navy, and then just make sure that my puppet of Chilean Argentina annexes the entirety of Argentina. And now we have conquered, I would say, the most vital parts of South America, and now it is time for us to prepare to actually naval invade Britain. And the reason that that's actually the reason that we've been building up our navy so much, so that we could naval invade Britain. I'm also going to request forces from our puppets until we get around 24 divisions of puppet troops, and we'll send them over to the eastern coast of Brazil. Well, kind of the only coast that Brazil has is an eastern coast. And now we finally secured all of the ships, pretty much all of the ships that we're going to be able to get before trying to invade the UK, which is almost 100 ships, so we're actually looking pretty good. And we're going to start training another 24 divisions of the Carabineros, so that we have just a lot of troops whenever we're going to try and just flood in whenever we get a landing in Britain, since the AI has kind of been better about mounting a defense quickly. So you have to get in there faster than the older updates in order to actually beat the British. We're also going to do some economic stuff, imposing new taxes and all of that. And we are also purchasing guns in order to arm our troops. You know, arm them quicker than they would usually be armed. Sorry if I'm having a lot more mess ups in my speech. I am sick right now. It's not super bad right now, but whatever I have has been causing me a lot of like brain fog and exhaustion. So my brain isn't exactly working at its highest capacity right now. But now it's time to declare war on the UK, and we're going to get military access from the Germans. And with that military access, we can, well, obviously send over our troops, but we can actually send over our navy to Europe as well. And so I'm going to send my troops over to Bordeaux and send my navy somewhere along the English Channel. And so now, with our first batch of troops having made it to Europe, I am going to get our little naval invasion set up, which will just be a basic naval invasion of Dover. And we're going to send the rest of our divisions over. And now that our whole army is here, we're just going to set them up on different ports so that they don't run out of supply. And now we're going to see if we can actually do our naval invasion. And surprisingly, Britain just has 0 ships in the English Channel. I'm not sure what was going on with the British Navy, but they weren't actually very defensive in this game. which is awesome because the British Navy was what caused most of my games to fail. And honestly, I thought this attempt was going to fail because they were actually defending the ports, and our divisions aren't very strong. So with them defending the ports, they got very quickly killed. You know, it starts to look good here, but yeah, we get attacked from the other side with our divisions right next to Dover, and that causes us to lose the battle. And so with that loss, we're gonna need a new plan. Also, the British are naval invading me at my homeland, which doesn't usually happen. That's probably where their navy was. But we're just gonna get some of our puppets divisions and use those to defend our home. And I want to, clarify this. I did not call my allies in, and me not calling my allies in was actually good, since if I had called them in, the British would have just flooded into Brazil and quickly taken over Brazil and subsequently taken over me, because we don't really have enough strength to fight the British head on. We need to surprise them in their homeland while they're, fighting everybody else that they're fighting. Now we're going to set up our new naval invasion plan around Portsmouth, because Portsmouth is usually defended way less, and some of the provinces in the area have access to, other ports. So if Portsmouth itself doesn't work, we could possibly move our troops over to Dover quickly as the British try to scramble to defend. And our navy gets supremacy once again. We're just doing naval invasion support so that our navy doesn't actually try to fight the British Navy. And now begins the invasion of Britain. And this time, the Brits aren't defending their ports very well. I think maybe they had their divisions in Dover as a way to set up for their own naval invasion, but they didn't leave Portsmouth defended, so we just started flooding in our divisions. First with the actual army that did the original invasion, having its own separate front line, and then the other two armies in Europe are going to be sent over there as a field marshal order. And it's pretty straightforward from here. And something pretty important that happened there, it didn't really show on screen for very long because it's time-lapsed, is that we joined the Axis, and that was just so that we could get the German Air Force to help us with mopping up the last bits of Britain. And we're going to need the Axis for some other stuff later on. But now we have capitulated the UK, and we're going to get to take in some territory. First up is the territory in, our hemisphere, which includes Canada. We really need Canada in particular for this strategy. And then I decided to see if I could take some extra stuff. And honestly, I thought I was probably just going to have to forfeit territory that I took in Britain, but as you will see, we're actually able to take land in Britain, which was not really what I was expecting, but that's nice. And we just take some of the British Navy because we will be naval invading the US whenever we go to war with them. So it would be nice to have, a strong enough navy to do that. But now kind of ends the day one stuff that I did, since there have been a lot of attempts before this. I was just happy that I'd finally gotten through what was my main hurdle, which was defeating the British. And now we're going to just set up production for supply and a little bit more for guns, everything like that. But now on to day 2. And now with the second day, we've got a lot of plans. We've got a lot to do. But the main thing that we're going to do, at least first, is we're going to try to unite South America. Since we've taken the coast, I mean, we've taken all of the, you know, British colonies, French colonies, that kind of thing. And so, we're going to just start bolstering revolutionary forces in Venezuela. So Venezuela is going to be our first target, and I'm honestly just going to do the economic focuses and the military focuses just to try to stack all of those buffs. And I am going to disband all of my colonial divisions, since I don't want to waste their manpower and equipment that I will be getting later whenever we eventually propose closer cooperation and obviously, you know, annex them. But I misspoke earlier and said Venezuela, but we're actually going after Colombia. And the reason we're going after Colombia is because Venezuela is a pain to invade from Brazilian territory and naval invasion. So we're just going to take over Colombia since they have way less divisions, and so it's a lot easier to take them over and then just set our divisions to invade from Colombia to Venezuela, where we'll have just better supply, better terrain to fight on, and everything. And we're also going to justify a war goal on Paraguay eventually to try and just, you know, make this a little bit faster by not spending as much political power. And now the revolution finally kicks off in Venezuela. Now we're going to set our troops to the border that the rebel state has with Venezuela, and we'll just invade from there since it will be good supply and everything since it's next to an allied capital. And so the war with Venezuela goes pretty quick. And we've also been researching some Air Force stuff in the meantime to allow us to actually build up somewhat of an Air Force whenever we fight the US. And now we have capitulated Venezuela. Pretty obvious what we're going to do in the peace field. Get our vassal to take all of the land. And now we're going to head on to the next target, which will actually be Paraguay for now. However, something really annoying is going to happen with Paraguay that I'll get to whenever it happens. I'm also going to prep to invade Brazil, Peru, since, you know, they are about to end their war with Ecuador, and I thought they were going to annex Ecuador, but they ended up only taking, they took everything but the Galapagos Islands, which I don't know why, but, you know, invade Paraguay now? And Paraguay fights to the last province, but we eventually defeat them. However, this is really annoying. It's too expensive, or score-wise, for us to actually take over Paraguay. And so that was very annoying, because now we just have a one-state Paraguay left. And so we're going to have to invade them yet again. But I still think it's cheaper, political power-wise, for us to invade them like this. It's just annoying that my plan didn't work out. And honestly, looking over the footage right now, I've noticed, hey, I could have just let Brazil take that western part of Paraguay and then taken the eastern part for myself. I don't know why I didn't do that. But, yeah. Now we're going to set up our invasion of Peru, and we will also justify on Ecuador later on. Now we got the revolution set up in Brazil. I keep saying Brazil. Got the revolution set up in Peru, and it's going to be quite a slog to you know, get started there. But once you get started in you know, actually taking land from Peru, it'll be pretty easy to beat. So we're going to begin, and the main part, well, the main city that's going to be like focus is Cusco, but it quickly fell, but is mainly just main focus because of, you know, getting encirclement there. And if you want to slow down the video, there are my plane designs that I'm going to be using against the US, and the Brazilians, after a while, actually did a naval invasion in northern Peru, which pulls some of their divisions away from the border, from the front line at Lima, allowing us to eventually, as time goes on, just brute force Lima into falling to us. And now, with Lima taken, we win the war, and we just have our puppet to take all of the Peruvian territory, and I just make them take Ecuador as well, because I didn't want to have another situation like Paraguay where we have to go through the whole process a second time. But now I plan a naval invasion of Ecuador, but I don't believe we're actually going to need it, because I guess they joined a faction or whatever with each other, and so just taking out Paraguay will actually get us both countries. I don't know why, but you know. And we're also going to release Canada, mainly because I wanted to do a special thing with Canada, but I made a mistake earlier on to where that special plan that I had with Canada didn't really matter. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Now comes the war with Paraguay, and we just call everybody in that surrounds Paraguay. You know, not everybody in the Axis to fight Paraguay, because I don't want them to join like the Comintern or something. And this war ends pretty quickly. And we're going to start proposing a closer cooperation, since we're about to take every state in South America as our puppet. Or just, you know, it'll either be owned by a puppet or owned by us directly. Most of it by puppets, though. But once we, obviously we're going to annex Paraguay, and then I also noticed, for some reason, Ecuador's on the peace deal. So we take Ecuador. Now we have control over South America. We just need to propose closer cooperation in order to annex our subjects, and then the Union of Hispanic Peoples to core everything. We're also going to use Division de Inventaria with some support equipment or support companies, like I just showed like 10 seconds ago on the screen. And that's going to be the division that we use for the rest of now. Just gonna slowly annex everybody to try and get a cooler look. This, a lot of puppets, probably too many, but you know. So, there goes Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, then there goes Peru, then there goes Colombia, then Venezuela, and finally, and now we've got a pretty decent chunk of divisions. So I'm gonna cut it down to 120 divisions, and we're going to change all these divisions to Division de Inventaria. And we're gonna split them up into 5 armies of 24 divisions. And actually Canada got annexed after that focus, but I re-released them because I'm just going to explain the plan now, since, you know, we've got time to explain it. So the plan was to have Canada as a puppet so that we could call them in separately against the US after getting a front established in the US through a naval invasion. Whenever we actually go to war with the US, I accidentally clicked on Call Allies, which called in the Axis, which I did want to call in eventually, but I didn't want them immediately in there. And that also called in Canada. So we did eventually, you know, get a naval invasion started in another part of the US, but it was just very annoying that that whole plan with releasing Canada was ruined and basically made us waste like hundreds of political power, because obviously you saw the thumbnail, we you know, also annexed Canada. But now we formed the Union of Hispanic Peoples, which gives us a bunch of manpower basically don't have to worry about manpower at all. We have an incredible economy. And so we're just really going to build up to fight the US. You know, get all of our troops equipped. We actually have them shift click exercising right now. So we're just going to get them all equipped, all trained to have, you know, rank 3. And then we're going to have, I believe it was just one 24 Division Army to protect the homeland from any naval invasions that the US would try to do. We also need a bunch of resources, so yeah. We're building a lot of planes as well. But we quick deployed the 24 divisions to protect the mainland, or the homeland, I mean, and mainly just gonna have them take the islands right off the coast of South America that the US has. And now I've got my troops in position, so I'm gonna have them naval invade. I'll have them do a naval invasion plan in Houston. So we have the main, I think it was like around 12 divisions assigned to naval invade Houston itself, and then 6 divisions on each side of Houston. And if you're wondering how I got the increased size of naval invasions, there's just a technology for it. I get that question a lot, since there are a lot of newer players, and sometimes you just don't notice details like that, even if you've been playing for a long time. But there are a lot of new players that will ask questions like that, so it's just nice to answer that in the video. Now we're going to justify for retake core state, since all of our troops are their, you know, max level, and we accidentally call everybody in. I said it earlier. So this is a little annoying. I have to, you know, deploy my air force that I planned to let get a little bit bigger and a little bit more experienced before using them. But now we have to use them quickly so that the American Air Force doesn't just obliterate us. Now we're invading Houston as well, and Houston is actually pretty unguarded, just 1 division, and we have like 24 divisions doing the naval invasion, so it's pretty obvious that we're going to win that. And the offensive in the north is doing pretty well. We've taken Detroit, most of Michigan, and a lot of the bordering provinces. And now we've also taken Houston, so we're going to send the 48 divisions that I had in the islands. 24 of those were already in the naval invasion, so they were already there. The other 24 coming over there on the field martial order to invade through Texas. And this just splits the US Army up a lot, allowing us to fight a much weaker US Army in the north. Well, the northeast, where I think half of the US victory points are, and where a lot of their factories are. So, yeah. And honestly, it goes very, very well in the beginning. We do deploy our Air Force. We'll deploy more and more planes as time goes on, just to not have to rely on the Germans helping us constantly with Air Force, because that's the main reason we're even able to have air superiority, is the Germans are helping us. And after doing a lot of military focuses, we've gotten Prussianization of the army as a focus to do, and that gives us just a little bit of a bonus. But now the offensive starts to slow down quite a bit as we run into supply problems in the north and in the south. Since we only have 48 divisions there, we're just kind of outnumbered. And so we need to build up some supply in the northeast, so I'm going to do that by building a port there, right on the front line. And once we get the supply there, we're going to need to try and encircle Boston, or just take it in general, but it's usually better to try and encircle provinces if you want specific ones. But thankfully, we have just a strong enough air force, strong enough air superiority that gives us the ability to take Boston without having to fully encircle it. So that was nice. And that secures our supply for a little bit in the northeast. But that offensive won't really last a whole, that offensive won't really last a very long time. Just simply because, AI is kind of being smart and putting a lot of divisions to defend their victory points. And so the main spot we get stuck around is New York, New York City, and it looks like we're doing pretty well to push, but in actuality, those troops that were just about to encircle New York City were pushed out, so we have to do something else, which actually is just wait, and then the army there is just weak enough. I guess they had some divisions leave, and our Air Force, once again, helps us quite a lot in taking a major city, which in this case is New York City. And now it's time for another offensive, which again won't last very long, but did a little bit. But now I'm going to start doing some encirclements, because now the problem that we're running into with the offensives is not necessarily that we're running out of supply, it's just that the US just has a bunch of divisions. So I'm going to try and do an encirclement to, encirclements to reduce the amount of divisions they have. The first one is in Pennsylvania, and through, threatening a lot of other provinces, the AI actually abandoned Newark for the most part, and they just had tank divisions there, which do not do very well whenever they're not fully equipped. And so we got our first encirclement in northeastern Pennsylvania. And now with that encirclement done, we're going to try to micromanage in order to take Philadelphia and maybe in some more provinces. And now our troops move to try and take Philadelphia, and then we have some troops move in from the west to try and pressure them to move troops out of Philadelphia, since we're having some trouble there actually. And now we've secured the western front with Philadelphia. So now we just attack from a bunch of directions, and with the help of our Air Force, we take Philadelphia and get a little mini encirclement. And we get a second encirclement actually in New Jersey. So we're taking down a decent amount of their divisions. Our troops are moving around a little bit though, to the front in the south. I could have fixed that, but I didn't really care to, since we weren't running super low on divisions in either front. But we're able to actually move across I think it's the Potomac River, and take Baltimore, and Washington falls pretty soon after. We're just getting air superiority, like a lot of air superiority. Just because over time, since our planes are actually very well designed and the US planes are not, we've just overpowered them as time has gone on. But with the capture of Washington, and me transferring it from Canada to myself, we got proactive defense. And now I'm going to try to do an offensive. Fails because we're just facing a lot of problems with them still having a lot of divisions. But now begins the plan, which kind of involves my home state actually, Missouri. We're going to cut through Missouri in order to connect with the offensive in the south, which will allow us to split up US forces and greatly affect the supply of, like half of their army by cutting it off from the capital. Because I believe at this point, the AI had set the capital to be like LA or something, since we had taken most of the eastern major cities. But just with a little bit of air force in the area, we were quickly able to maneuver around the AI's troops and get a connection between both of our front lines, cutting off like half of the country from the capital. And just for good measure, I also micromanaged and take Kansas City. But now, it's time, finally, just absolutely destroy the AI US. Finally. This has taken me, I don't know how many attempts to do. It's just difficult. But now we're prepping our Air Force, getting it all set up for this big offensive that will win us the war. Let's go. And surprisingly, it actually wasn't like California or something that was the last state for us to take before the US capitulated. It's actually Louisiana, specifically New Orleans. This is just because there are a ridiculous amount of victory points in the eastern part of the country in Hearts of Iron 4, so once you take the east, you don't have to take very much more in order to capitulate the US. And so we finally capitulate the US. And I'm just going to annex everything. Specifically, though, we need to annex Canada. But I'm going to annex everything that I can. Aside from a lot of the Pacific Islands, but stuff in North America we get. Aside from Hawaii. But Hawaii's too small to be in the thumbnail anyways. So now, we finally have both achievements. We have Red Hot Chili Peppers and Proactive Defense. And I could stop the video there and leave you with some pretty disgusting borders, but I decided that, you know what, we're already here. I'm just going to unite the entirety of South America. So that's what I did. Used up my saved up political power to basically to where all the revolutions and stuff that we have left to do will launch across every country left that isn't under our control in the Western Hemisphere. Oh, and another reason I'm doing this, we can actually do all of our cores by finishing up conquest of Latin America. So now we have 1,000 political power, spend all of it to start the revolutions in Central America and the Caribbean. And here is just how I'm going to annex all of the puppets that I get. We're just going to send convoys. In reality, we're only going to get Canada, but we only need to annex Canada and Mexico as puppets because we don't get any other puppets. We do get a weird glitch though, where Haiti has a revolt, but Haiti isn't multiple states in this game, so the country doesn't actually exist, but we still have them as a puppet that shows up. But it doesn't break anything. We're still able to like court everybody. And I'm just gonna let this kind of time lapse speak for itself, since I mean it's pretty obvious that we're gonna win. And Mexico has fallen, which is the strongest one. All the countries left, but Mexico's not going to be secured forever. They will have their small little civil war that they usually do, but it won't be very hard for us to deal with because we just have like 150 divisions or something, so not really a big deal. And so now we just needed to enable invade the rest of the Caribbean. And we get to annex Canada after sending them a bunch of convoys after a while. Which also means that we get those convoys back and we can just use them to annex Mexico. Now we land some divisions in the Dominican Republic, and now we're going to move into Haiti. The reason we didn't invade Haiti is just simply because it's usually much harder to invade them than native invasion, at least in my experience. But now with Haiti out of the way and the Dominican Republic, we just have Cuba. And Cuba will be very, very easy to deal with. But like I mentioned earlier, the usual civil war in Mexico is going to start, even though they are our puppet. So we'll have to deal with them as well. But we actually have some divisions in the area. I was dumb and tried to justify a war goal instead of just joining the war right off the bat. And I realized, like, oh wait, I can just join the war. But we have some divisions in the area, so we just set them to invade Catholic Mexico. And now, with the fall of Catholic Mexico and the fall of Cuba, all we need to do is annex Mexico, which we do, just by sending them a bunch of convoys. And now we're going to integrate the rest of the territories we can. We'll integrate Mexico, then Central America, then the Caribbean, and that is every territory that we can integrated. We end off with like 18.6 million manpower and hundreds of factories. 700, almost 800 factories actually. So it's a pretty good campaign. And I just want to check, how big our economy was in comparison. We're still only the second largest economy, but we could have built it up to the first very easily just by the fact that we had a ton of states under our control. But yeah. Video took me a lot longer than I thought it would to get out because I was sick for most of the production of this video, and I still am currently sick, just not as sick as I have been. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If this video maybe helped you or something, or you have a question, leave a comment. And yeah, oh, and something that would help greatly is subscribing. Oh yeah, any of those three helps the channel a lot. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.